As part of the Phoenix Natural Gas Diversity Week, I'm delighted today to be joined by Jo McParland, who's from Cara Friend group, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges that the LGBTQ plus community have, both in workplaces and wider society.
Cara Friend is Northern Ireland's longest established LGBTQ plus charity. We were established back in 1974. And we were established because back then LGBT rights were non-existent. Decriminalisation of homosexuality didn't come in until 1982. So Cara Friend was really a safe space for people back then to kind of get together. They'd also started a helpline called Switchboard that allowed people to connect in with advice back then in the 70s. The kind of work that we have developed into recently is working with young people. So we work with young people from 12 to 25 who question their sexual orientation and or gender identity. And we do that by creating safe spaces for them in youth groups. The biggest youth group is in Belfast, and we have regional groups as well. And those groups are really just to give that safe space, to give young people the ability to connect in with other peers that feel exactly the same way about their sexual orientation and gender identity.
You talked about the LGBT switchboard in Northern Ireland. Sounds like a fantastic service. You clearly have an insight into some of the challenges that this community faces, particularly in the workplace. Can you maybe identify some of those challenges for us?
Within organisations, there was a report done recently by Stonewall UK, which is the biggest LGBT organisation in the United Kingdom, and they looked at, I think it was 18% of LGBT people had a negative experience within a corporate world. I think it was something like 12% of trans people had been attacked by co-workers or by customers at work. You have something like 12% of LGBT and 21% of trans people saying that they would not talk about their sexual orientation or gender identity at work. 18% get discriminated because of their sexual orientation and gender identity. So these are issues that all corporate organisations really need to focus on and deal with. And to deal with them, there needs to be more of a conversation about LGBTQ plus and what that means, and instead of looking at it fearfully, it's really looking at what can people from that community bring to organisations and corporations. The first thing is training. I think it's really important that organisations at every level, whether it's just staff members, middle management, upper management, they have training where they can talk and debate and discuss these issues. Where they have somebody like me coming in and saying, and not being negative towards them, but really just having that discussion with them and trying to get them to develop their knowledge and understanding. Knowledge and understanding leads to acceptance. So we need to have the conversations, we need to have the debates within the corporate world. I think it's also really important that you're trying to bring people with you to change hearts and minds and not force them into believing something that they're not ready for. And that's that kind of understanding that everybody's on a journey. Not everybody is going to be on the same place, on the same page at the same time. But if you don't start the conversations, then we're never going to get there. We weren't taught this sort of thing in school. Children, thankfully, this information is being talked about in school for the first time, probably in the last few years. But we didn't get that when we were at school. So, is it any wonder that we have more difficulty dealing with these subjects and trying to find where we sit with regards to LGBT people within an organisation? So we have to have that dialogue, we have to have the conversations and not be afraid to talk about it. I mean, if there's one thing that we're really good at in Northern Ireland, it's debate and discussion. So why don't we use that to allow people to, listen to the arguments. Maybe they have never met somebody that's LGBT before. And I think also there needs to be an understanding that it's not a choice for me to be gay or to be straight. I'm a gay woman, and that wasn't a choice that I made. The only choice I made was to accept myself for who I was.